Good afternoon. My name is Tom Kendall, and this is a meeting of the Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, October 16th, and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. To my left is Mr. John Swayzer, member of the committee. To my right, Mr. Todd Siebert, also a member of the committee. We have a couple items to come before Finance today, so Mr. Titterington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is an MVRPC surface transportation project grant application. This would be for Phase 1 of East Main Street reconstruction project. The year of funding, if approved, would be state fiscal year 2025, so the funding would be available as early as middle to late 2024. What this would do would be to do some reconstruction of East Main Street, starting at Mulberry Street east to Frank Street, with the intent that we would then look at a second phase. They're only asking for applications for the first for the 2025, but we would submit for phase 2, which would be from Frank Street out to the Great Miami River Bridge.
The Broadford Bridge.
Broadford Bridge, yeah, that's it. And so we are asking for authorization to submit that to MVRPC. We do have a tight time frame. There's a lot of work that had to be done beforehand, and the deadline is approaching. So with that in mind, we are asking for consideration of emergency legislation.
What is the deadline?
Deadline's actually passed.
The deadline is forgiveness deadline.
Okay. Todd, any questions?
No, no.
See it,
John?
So we're going to start this after the West Main Street. That'll be all done and completed.
yeah.
Yes.
God willing.
Yes.
When is that going to start? Yes.
The Main Street?
The West Main
the
Street.
West Main Street? Well, actually, the design and the appraisal process, the right-of-way process has started. The actual construction, I believe we're talking about 23 or 22, 23 for Phase 1.
Okay.
Okay.
And phase 2.
And then Phase 2 would follow a year later.
Okay. I have nothing else.
Anybody in the audience? All right.
Go for it.
Let's go forward. Emergency
With
legislation.
emergency, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second item?
Yeah.
Okay. The second item is that we're requesting council authorize the filing of a Target of Opportunity grant through the Ohio Development Services Agency. It's a CDBG block grant. We would request $150,000. That funding would then be available to offset part of the costs of the renovations to the Sadelman building, Cass building, whatever you, shoe store building. That is, would be an eligible project given its historic nature, and it's part of the financing pro forma that they're using to complete the work on the project. We're asking for authorization to submit, knowing that the rest of the financing must be in place or approved. The Targets of Opportunity grant is a last dollar in grant, but we need to get the process started to make the application, and so we are asking for council approval to do that. Because there is a long time frame, because the rest of the financing is nearly in place, we are asking for emergency legislation to keep the process going, as particularly CDBG applications do tend to take longer than many others.
Okay.
We locally have would have no matching funds. This would be a straight $150,000 grant coming through the CDBG program.
Okay, so we would have no
general
responsibility to
fund,
match
no,
them or anything?
correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Does it have any impact on future CDBG money for us?
No, sir.
So it's a separate grant?
This is a
So
separate,
how much money will we have ended up either giving to that project, grant or loan, or, because we gave a loan that then we converted to a grant. So why don't we just own the building by now?
That's a good question.
the total project for the building far exceeds what we have granted. But when you say "we," these have all been CDBG funds. These have not been general funds. To date, and this is the maximum that we can and will, the council has authorized. To this point, a $1 million CDBG grant has been awarded to them. This is a different pot of money that runs through the state for an additional $150,000.
But we're not obligated to give this, because word on the street is that they can't complete the project because of financial difficulty. So I assume this is to help fix that to bridge that financial difficulty. So the question I need an answer to is, does this money then only come into play after they've either secured additional financing? We will be the last infusion of cash, for lack of a better term, to complete the project.
So as I said earlier, first of all, addressing the word on the street, which is rarely 100% accurate, and in this case, that bears out. The project is still in final financing. There have been some alternatives that are being cleared, and as I mentioned earlier, Targets of Opportunity Grant is a last dollar in grant. It is only awarded after all other financing has been secured. So if in fact the financing, the bank financing, the historic tax credits, the other financing mechanisms do not come into play, this grant funding is not awarded.
Okay, that's what I was at. That's a better way to say that.
Okay, question though on this, what, of the money that's been given to them, how much has been used and what has actually gotten done? I mean, I know there's a candy store in REU.
So I don't have the exact amount, but I want to say it's around 300,000 of the million has been used, and it's been used to shore up the building, to do some repairs, roof repairs and the like. The rest of it has not been used to date.
Okay, but a lot of that 300 was also design and all, wasn't it?
There was some design, but it was a minimal amount of design, as well as the actual purchase of the building.
Okay, but I thought they had the building before.
No, that was, I mean, it was.
It was purchased with CDG
Come on up.
funds, 2015.
Introduce yourself.
Greg Harris with Development Department. The building was purchased in 2015 by TCW using CBG dollars, around 200,000. So
And
that
that started as a
200,000
loan that was then converted as a grant, and then was increased to the $1 million.
Which was always a grant or got converted from a loan to a grant?
The first 350,000 or thereabouts was originally I believe it was zero interest, long-term revolving loan. And then it was converted to, no, it was 650,000 that it was then converted to the $1 million grant by council at a later date.
Okay, so the 300 and some that's been used, 200,000 was for the purchase, and
The rest towards pre-development expenses as well as stabilization of the building that Patrick talked about.
Okay.
And that was just $100,000 for the architectural work and stabilization?
There's other consulting fees since there's historic income tax credits involved. So there was a variety of different fees, permit fees for plan review.
So they've been settling on 700,000 since 15?
No, we have been.
It's
we have
still
not
our money.
released it.
We have not released it, okay.
So is the $2,280,000, is that a hard number? Is that the last amount that they're gonna need? Because it seems like when we first did this, way back when they bought the building, they had all the numbers that they needed, and they were gonna be able to rehabilitate that building. They knew where their financing was all coming from, and then all that stuff kind of crumbled as time went on. And now it's up to $2.3 million. I mean, I don't have a problem with this. I mean, anything we can do to help them get ahead. But the numbers seem kind of fluid sometimes to me.
Now, these numbers are the hard and fast numbers that were
2.2.
quoted by the contractor,
Okay.
or the proposed contractor.
And that's move-in ready? That's all
That
three
will
floors?
complete all
that's
3 floors, that will have everything done and ready.
Elevators and,
Yes.
okay.
And when would they foresee starting this and completion of all?
They'll start as soon as the Targets of Opportunity grant is awarded. Again, that being the last dollar, there's steps that have to be taken, certifications that have to be filed, and then the state has to award it. As soon as they award it, since that's the last dollar in, the day after that, they could start. And they are ready to start as soon as they get all of the financing in place.
So they have the contractor in place and all that?
They do.
They do.
Okay. Who is the contractor?
I'd rather that TCW be here to tell you that, but I believe it's Level and B was the lowest that they had.
And they did do a competitive bidding, if you will, and had several contractors bid on the project.
Aside from this $150,000, do they have everything they need now to do this building?
They are in the final steps of finishing the financing. There were some initial concerns about the length of guarantee and the size of that guarantee. The bank they went back and with the bank and looked at a couple of alternatives, and the bank evaluated those alternatives, one of which included converting some of the guarantee into a supplemental loan, if you will, so that then that money could be released and paid interest through the reinvestment fund. And so our understanding is they're in the final steps of memorializing that new financing pro forma, at which point then they will get letters of commitment from the banks and the financing agents, which are needed to then complete the filing on the Targets of Opportunity grant.
And this doesn't impact us. I'm pretty simple, so how I view this is, basically, we're just serving as a
pass-through.
conduit.
We are a
We're
pass-through.
serving as a conduit for them to make a request to the state for certain monies that are, hey, we need a little extra push to get things done. If we get everything else in order, will you give us this amount?
Correct.
And we believe that will be an amount that would be no greater than 150, but could potentially be less depending what the terms of the bank are.
I think it's pretty well set at
It's gonna be
150, but the
150.
maximum would be 150.
150, and we
Yes,
don't,
And we are simply a pass-through, because we are the ones that have the CDBG eligibility, and are the municipality, we will pass that.
and it doesn't affect future requests. We don't have a cap on how
Correct.
much CDBG money we can get or the programs
That's
we can get
correct.
in.
Each project stands on its own.
Is this money that TCW would have to pay back to a fund someplace?
Which month? 150?
The 150.
That's a grant, so there would be no
Okay.
repayment.
All right.
Anything else?
No.
Anyone in the audience? All right, John?
I'm good. Is this emergency?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a problem under that analysis, thank you.
Okay, let's move forward then.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else come
No,
before
sir.
finance? Okay, meeting adjourned, thank you.
You all settled?